And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live and Little Italy Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live and our Little Italy podcast. And I am thrilled to have join us today Michele Palermo, writer, director, exec producer of this fabulous new show, soon to be streaming to a streaming service near you, Middlehood. Absolutely love it. I've gotten, some sneak peeks at this. Eight of them, right? You already recorded 8 episodes?
Yep, 8 episodes.
Absolutely fabulous. Thanks for joining us, my friend, Michele.
Thank you, Deborah. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so we got lots to talk about, including how we met, but we'll deal with that one a little later on in the podcast. First off, talk to me about Middlehood. What's it about? What was the inspiration behind it all?
Middlehood is a deep dive into a moment in the life of a woman named Lisa Giordano Navarro, who is in the middle of every single possible thing in her life. She's just turned 50. She's in the middle of a divorce. She is in between jobs, which means that she's lost her job. And she's in the middle of her family's holiday celebration, bringing her parents from Las Vegas to California, and kind of finds herself in the middle of this giant immigrant family reunion. And it really is 48 hours in the life of these characters. And we go very deep and we go very wide. Every main character has sort of a flashback life. So we go everywhere from 1960s Milwaukee to 1944 Germany at the end of the war, and it's a great study of what it means to be a middle-aged woman, really.
Yes, with immigrant parents as well, because I do know your story. You say Milwaukee, well, you grew up in Milwaukee. You say Germany because that's mom, and dad is Italian, right? So I get this feeling that Lisa is Michele. Am I correct with that?
Lisa is Michele. Yes, she's definitely Michele. She was inspired. This whole thing was inspired by a moment in my own life where I found myself in this situation. And my parents, I was living in my brother's house with my parents for 3 months. I won't go into the reason for it. And I really got to this place in my life where I was like, how did I end up here? What is it? What are the circumstances? The way that I built my life did not put me here. And I started to talk to people about this, right? People my age. I started to talk to, are you happy? How do you feel? And I found this very common denominator that people in midlife, no matter how successful I think they might be, no matter how happy they may look on Facebook, we all have this commonality, which is the life that I built didn't quite add up to the life I imagined it would be. And so there's this moment, and I call that the moment where the life we lived meets the life we have left, where we have this sort of, oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep going like this? Is this a good path? Should I jump ship and go do something else? And a lot of this, for me, it didn't, because I don't have kids, but a lot of this melds in with growing kids and aging parents. And I think for children of immigrants, because my parents were, I'm the firstborn generation in my family. There's also this expectation that you're going to make something of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They're like, you got this opportunity right from the start. You didn't have to come here. And, that there's that whole story of how, the people who came to this country willingly, really like they feel like there's this pressure to do this thing. And so all of this kind of combines in middle age to make like a giant soup of crazy. And so I thought that was a really fun starting out point, a really fun launching point.
The giant soup of crazy. Mind if I take that? Because that's sort of my life in a word. I love that one. Now, immigrant parents, right? Because we're also streaming this on our Little Italy podcast. You lived in Rome for a period of time in your early life, right? Because dad is Italian and I believe he got work there. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about being Italian and all that means in your entire repertoire of your life.
Oh my gosh, it means so much. So my dad moved here to go to college when he was 18. Yeah. And we were here until he met my mom here. And then we were here until I was about 9 years old. And he had moved here because, much like many immigrants, my uncle lived here, right? My uncle was a doctor. He came here to go to medical school. So my dad came. And then my uncle wanted to move back to Italy. And then all of a sudden we were moving back to Italy because my dad didn't really know how to be here without family. So much of being Italian is all about being around family, right? And so his family had all gone back to Italy. And so he went back to Italy and picked us all up. I was at the end of my 4th grade, pulled us out of school at the end of 4th grade and took us to Rome. And we were going to build a new life there. He was supposed to open, I think, a budget rent-a-car there or something like that, the first budget rent-a-car in Italy. And we got over there and, we hated it. We loved being around our family, but we didn't speak the language and they didn't have the right kind of milk cartons and there was no clothes dryer. And there was, it's like, the milk never got really cold like it did in America. And there were all these things that as little kids, you get used to your life in a certain place. And we were transported into a completely different country with completely different culture. It was the best thing my parents ever did.
I like,
I
like that.
Yeah, it was the best thing they could have done. I'll make a long story short, which is that my brother got into the international school where they spoke English. There was no room for my grade. And I had been a really good student in grade school. And so my parents were like, oh, she's smart. Let's just put her in Italian school. Oh. Now, imagine being in 5th grade and going into a 5th grade class, which I know a lot of folks have that experience now in the States, right? You walk into a 5th grade class and you don't know the language and you don't know anything about anything. And you're already studying 5th grade level. Yeah. So I was very lucky to have one little girl. I mean, everybody was laughing at me and the teacher called me retarded. I mean, it was a horrible first day of class, but one little girl was very sweet and came up to me, got up in front of the class, took my hand, sat me down at her desk, and she just sort of took me under her wing and tutored me that whole year. She came home and did homework with me and became she was amazing. She was amazing. Became my very best friend. And at the end of 5th grade in Italy, they have these oral exams to get you into middle school. And she was first in the class and I was second in the class. And she has stayed, I know, it was an amazing story. And she has stayed with me all these years. And because we're on Facebook Live, I do need to do a little shout out to Facebook, which is that years later, when I was watching that show, My Brilliant Friend, which is on HBO and just a glorious show, and I turned to my husband and I was like, oh God, I had this friend, blah, 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 blah. I really want to find her. He's like, you're on Facebook, go find her. And I couldn't remember her proper name. I couldn't remember the name of the school, but because I remembered one girl who was in my class and I reached out to her on Facebook, she got us back together. But that it was amazing. And we're planning a reunion trip now.
Yeah, that's really fabulous. Honestly, I found many of my relatives in Italy the same way through Facebook, through one relative in New Jersey who said, they're all on Facebook over there, Deborah and Avellino. And I'm like, really? And I found them. We did the same thing. We went over, we met them. We're always in contact. We're very close. It was an incredible thing that happened because of this whole social media platform. But getting back to being Italian, just for one more moment, what kind of impression did it make on you to be around so much family? I miss that. My family's they're all back east, really. What was that like for you, being around family almost 24/7 in Italy, right? What was that like?
I loved it and I hated it. It was because it's oppressive when you're a little girl to have, your aunts asking if you have a boyfriend and, everybody's like worried. Are you fat? Are you skinny? Are you tall? Are you short? Are you pretty? Are you ugly? It's like, it's very hands-on, as you know, coming from an Italian family. It's all very hands-on. But what I will say is that I got so used to there was less pressure in Italy. And I think it was because of that huge support group. It was because everybody sort of has that, or at the time had that kind of family. And I felt in a way more at home with the kids there. You know, there wasn't pressure to drink, and there wasn't pressure to smoke, and there wasn't pressure to party. And, you know, kids just kind of like got together and listened to music and, you know, and went to the beach. And it was just a very different experience. And I feel like we did move back to the States, you know, at a certain point, and then we spent all our summers there. But nice. I've never been able to be truly at home anywhere anymore, because there's always part of me that wants to be there.
Isn't that interesting?
I think I got, because of my parents taking me there, I did get a little bit of what it feels like to be an immigrant, even though I never emigrated to this country, which is that you do have a home that you feel very at home in, but you always miss the place where your family came from, I think.
Yeah. Well, you know? I noticed Lisa has an Italian name. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Your character.
Lisa Giordano. And then she's married to Bill Navarro, who's Mexican-American. So she's got a very long name, Lisa Giordano Navarro.
Yeah, but I noticed you gave her maiden name is Italian, which I love that. Inspiration, if you will. And by that, I mean, you know, TV pioneers who came before all of us, right? I believe I read Norman Lear and Better Things. Talk to me about the influence from All in the Family, you know, the work of Norman Lear. Would you please?
Yes. I grew up with All in the Family on every Sunday night in my house with, you know, All in the Family and Good Things. And I mean, he was the king of television back then. And when I was a little kid, I couldn't stand Archie Bunker because he reminded me of my father. Right.
Oh,
and yeah. He was like, he reminded me of my dad. He was like loud and it was inappropriate. But as I grew up, and another one that I really failed to mention is James L. Brooks, who wrote the Mary Tyler Moore Show. You know, I grew up in this era of very brave television. When I think about the television of the 1970s, you know, I teach television at Columbia University, so I do a lot of television history studying and reading.
Right.
And they were breaking barriers back then by putting Archie Bunker on television. Right.
Yeah.
And giving us this racist, bigoted, you know, jerk. We were able to identify like around that. And even the person who was in your house who was like that looked at that person and went, wow, that's not good. That's not okay. Yeah. And so I feel like as we've moved forward in television, we're approaching more subjects, but in a way less bravely. And I would say, for example, so in my show, in episode 3, there's an episode that is very much centered around a racist event that happens with Lisa's dad, right, at a Starbucks. And instead of sort of making it the way that television would now tend to portray racism is like white supremacy, I feel like we all have a racist in our family somewhere. Right. And I kind of lean into that because that's what Norman Lear did. That's what James Brooks did to sort of bring that out and show how people normalize that. Right. That is kind of the influence on that. And by showing how people, quote unquote, normalize that, it makes it look as abnormal and wrong as it is. And so that's kind of where I like to play in my world of television. I like to play on the edge. We'll see if.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I love how you stage it in a Starbucks. I just think that's sort of brilliant. You know what I mean? Because how many of us can just sort of relate to something like that? An incident in Starbucks or an incident at the grocery store or Target or just someplace where we all sort of happen to be. And then you're with someone. I love the premise of this because you feel like you're with the characters, right? Now, you really deeply built the characters. Can you talk to us about some of those briefly who are in many of the episodes and, you know, how deeply you go into each of their lives and how they intertwine?
Well, it's a family, right? So it's based on my family, which is me and my 3 brothers and my parents, right? And then the brothers have significant others. So that's really the core of it. And one family has kids and one brother we never see. Because that's actually what my life is like. I don't really see one of my brothers.
Wow.
We text, but that's it. But So the depth of it is one of the most healing things about writing this series, and I would highly recommend it to anybody, not necessarily as a series, but as anything, was writing out my family. And by that, I mean, I get into each of the characters and I gave them each an episode where we see things from their perspective in a way. We see what their history was like, what they think about in their quiet moments, what their moments were that led us to this moment. And by taking the perspective or going into the very deep into the life of each of these characters, of each brother, of the parents, of each of the parents, it allows you to not see everything from one character's point of view. It allows you to, as gruff as Aldo is and as much of a jerk as he can be, once we go back in time with him and we see what it was like for him when he came to this country and how he was treated as an other and all of that, we get a little softer spot for him and we feel his humanity a little bit more. And so I feel like the deeper you can go with a character, the more empathy that you create for that character. And really, isn't that what it's all about? What art and literature and television and film is all about is not just creating great stories and great characters, it's also creating empathy between the viewership, the community of people that's watching the show, which is really what I want.
I mean, we're all dealing with so much. I mean, you talked about, you know, the racist parent that you talk about. You talk about your brother that's sort of MIA half the time. You talk about Lisa, the character who's going through a divorce and midlife and taking care of her parents and trying to get them here for a holiday event. It's like, gosh, can we all relate to that or what? So I feel like there's somebody in there for all of us.
Yes.
I really like that. Do you want to sort of give us a little, you know, peek or hint into episode 1 and 2? You told us 3, you know, just to get our audience interested and go, oh, this is cool. This is me.
Yes. Episode 1 called The Drive. It should really be called Get in the Car, because it's about, you know, we meet Lisa, we meet everybody in the family as Lisa's trying to get her parents to get in the car to go to Los Angeles. And she thinks basically that, you know, she came there, she's got a mission, she's going to tell them she's getting divorced, she's going to figure out what she's going to do with her life. And she gets her, it's like wrangling cats. They don't want to go. The dad doesn't want her to be there. Dad thinks she shouldn't drive them. She, you know, so everybody's quirky personalities in terms of, you know, she basically, it also deals a lot with aging and Lisa coming to take her parents is a huge threat to them. Like, why do we need our daughter to take us anywhere? We're the parents, right? So the first episode deals a lot with shifts of power, right? Power shifts, like I'm taking you, no, you're taking me. And in the midst of all of this, the mother is falling gravely ill in front of everybody's eyes and nobody really knows what's going on with her. So episodes 1 and 2 are really kind of, as the family gathers together, we see each member of this family getting ready to shed themselves in a way to become the people that they were when they were kids and come into the family, and how that affects the spouses, the children, you know, how it affects Lisa's relationship with Bill over the phone and her mounting fear about telling her parents. I mean, this is a 50-year-old woman who's afraid to tell her parents she's getting divorced.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, I see so many of my friends and myself in your story, which is why I love this. Which is why when we first talked about Middlehood, I said, oh, we have to do a podcast about this because this is everybody's story. You know, I really love it. But I have to say, you are not divorced. So in this case, it's not, we're not talking about you being divorced, because I know you're happily married to a very successful and wonderful man. So I just want our audience, maybe the rest of it, you know, is a little crazy nuts going around you, but you are married. Let's talk a little bit about your background. Okay. You have worked with some of the best and the brightest in the business, from David E. Kelly. Tell us, please. And Martha Stewart, even, right? Early on in your career.
Yes.
Wait, and you even worked for a first lady of, what was it? Virginia.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do all that? You work for the first lady of Virginia. You end up working for Martha Stewart, you know, David E. Kelly, like, who are you? You know what I mean? Go ahead.
I know. Well, I have my life and then I have what I call my accidental life, right? So I have sort of 2 parallel things. I started out as an actor I wanted to be an actor. I became a writer because I was sitting at home at night, sometimes without acting jobs, and started writing. So my path has always been to make a world in the arts and entertainment industry, right? I went from being an actor to wanting to be an actor writer to wanting to, and there was that path. And that's the path where I met David Kelley, where I worked with Peter Horton, where, that it was the sort of those normal, what you would call normal milestones in the career of somebody who does what I do.
Right.
The more interesting things that happened in my life, and kind of the way that I ended up working with David Kelley and Peter Horton and all these things, is that I have this accidental life where I will take any job that you offer me if it can keep me doing what I want. Right. So I've been offered these weird gigs, which is like, I produced tours for the USO when I was younger because I could go off for 3 months, make a bunch of money, and then come back and not have to work. And I could just do my acting for 6 months. Right. So there was like that whole thing. So my sort of liberty in taking all of these opportunities is because I never wanted any of them to turn into a career. I was my brother was dating this woman who was working for ZM Productions, and they were doing the very first year of Martha Stewart's show, and they needed a writer. And little did I know, there's no such thing as writing for Martha Stewart. She's not going to do that, right? But what you have to, so they were like, she said, would you want to go back east for the summer? And my husband was, my then boyfriend, but husband was back east. And I was like, yeah, I would love to go back east for the summer. So I took this job writing for Martha Stewart. I quickly realized that Martha Stewart doesn't like anybody putting words in her mouth, but what she did like was tons of research, right? So this was back in the 90s. There was no internet. I would like run to the library, and we would decide what we were going to do, composting, tomatoes, whatever it was. And I would run and get all this research for her, right? I would like find as many different things as I could in 5 hours on 6 topics and bring it back. And as she was getting her makeup done, I would just read her information. And it was like brilliant the way that she would assimilate it and kind of spit it back out. But so that was a really fun year of my life. And getting to be the chief of staff and speechwriter to a first lady really harkens back to my early days, having left acting school and working in DC in a law firm. And my office mate was this wonderful woman named Lisa Collis. And I was, super focused on my work. And she was like, you got to come out to lunch with me. And this was years and years and years ago. And our paths we always stayed besties throughout the years, even though our paths went, different ways. And she ended up, married to now Senator Mark Warner. They have 3 beautiful kids. And when he was running for governor, she's a very private person. And she said, would you write me a speech? And then would you come and campaign with me? And I did. And it was fun. And then when it was time for them to take office, she was like, would you come and be my person and help me be the first lady? And I was like, that's an adventure. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Wow. How about David E. Kelley? How did you end up working with him?
Interestingly enough, I ended up working with him because of my experience in Richmond with Lisa, because as soon as we had finished the campaign, I wrote a pilot about campaigning, because I think nobody's done that yet. And I still have my pilot. I think it's a fascinating world. Very similar to the entertainment world, very similar to making a film, because you got all these young people who are sort of giving it all and getting kind of nothing in return, and there's true believers, and it's a really interesting world. And so I came up with this idea to do a show about campaigning, and that every year would be a different campaign, but it was like this main crew that would go through and campaign. And I wrote a pilot, and it got to David Kelley through, again, another accidental job that I'd had working in a law firm. The guy who's now working for David Kelley got this script from me, and he's like, I got to show this to David. And so, we ended up working a bit on the script with Bill D'Elia, who's one of the folks at David Kelley's. I met with David, and he pitched the series to Fox. I think was 20th Century Fox was his studio then, and they passed on it because couldn't really envision. Political shows were iffy then, unless it was The West Wing, and also this every year is a different campaign, which now is very much a TV trope. Every year is a different blank, but they hadn't done that yet. But it was really interesting. It was really, and same thing with Peter Horton. When I was working in the governor's mansion, I brought a show to him that was a female governor, kind of accidental female governor. And we pitched that to ABC. They didn't buy it, but I ended up getting to work with these really brilliant writers, and along the way, many brilliant executives, Nancy Cotton and Larry Gilbert, and folks that really, really helped me find my voice. And in fact, I was in touch with Peter the other night via email, just basically telling him I finished my show. And he was very supportive of my Kickstarter campaign to do this show. And, he said to me, my God, and I said to him, thank you very much for helping me find the strength of my voice, because it's people like that through your career. You have to look at opportunities as like, they don't always come in the form of like what you think. They don't always come in the form of like, here's your job and you're going to, but the very fact that people who were at the level of a David Kelley or Peter Horton are interested in what I have to say and are interested in my storytelling, help me build the courage to go, I want to tell my story and I can do it. Right. So it doesn't always come in exactly the form you think it's going to come in.
So right now you're looking for a home, right?
Yes.
So because I have people who have been texting me. In fact, while we're on, they're texting me. They're like, where can I see it? Okay. What's next for you? Like, and then before we go, we have to talk about how we met. And I only have a few minutes for that. So let's talk about where will you land? Where are you hoping to land?
We want to land with a service that will not only air our first season, but give us a chance to make another season. So wherever that may be, Hulu would be great. One of my comps is Better Things, which is FX. So FX is Hulu. That would be a great home for us. I mean, Netflix would be a dream. Roku, which is, it's just streaming service, a video on demand service. I went to a AFM seminar and listened to the woman who runs their acquisitions division, and I was very impressed with her. And with it really depends on we want to put it in a place, be it Amazon or Apple or Roku or TiVo or whatever it may be, that it can get to its audience. The majority of the streaming audience is women over 50, so let's give them a show that's about them. As far as
people don't realize that. Remember back in the day where it had to be under 35. And now you're absolutely right. I mean, we've got the buying power, those of us of a certain age. We do. We're streaming. We're enjoying it. I love streaming shows because sometimes I just go for like 4 and 5 episodes and then I stop and I think about it and I even go back. It's really a great way. And many of my friends are doing the same. So you're absolutely right. We are the new demographic people. So write to us. In other words, write for us, because the content that you're writing is something that I know that myself and so many of my peers will be interested in. Now, let's talk about perhaps the most important part of this interview, how you and I met. This was nuts. I mean, I'm going to start, okay? I'm driving and somebody calls me, and hi, I'm looking for blank. And I'm like, I know her voice. Maybe she thinks she's looking for somebody else. I'm like, well, who are you? Michele. Okay, Michele, are you looking for me? Deborah? No, I'm looking for, I'm thinking, but I know you. So somehow my number was in your phone under somebody else's name. And then we kept talking. You just seemed like one of those people I'd be interviewing or knowing. Weird. Go ahead, take it away if you would briefly.
Yeah, so I was calling my ex-publicist to try and actually get in touch with you, because you were one of the interviews that she was trying to get me when we left off. But for some reason your number was in her contact, and I kept going Rita, and then you were like Deborah, and I'm thinking, God, I don't even remember my publicist's names. What has happened to my brain?
That's funny.
Right?
That's
but
really
then we
funny.
started talking, and I was like, not only is this super cool that we're the serendipity of this, but I think I like this woman, and I'd like to be friends with her. Like we had so much in common. No,
so much in common. It's weird. We don't even need to get into it here, but it's even weirder. My next show with Gino Gaudio and 2 other filmmakers is talking about his family member who was the first Italian to get an Oscar. You went to school with him in London. This is nuts. I mean, the 6 degrees of separation between you and I is like 1 degree of separation. Do you know what I mean?
True. It's so true. That was so serendipitous. When I saw Gino's face on the promo, and I was like, that can't be my Gino Gaudio from London. And it was.
It was weird. So great connection. I feel like I've known you for, 25 years, yet we're new friends, and I have a feeling new long-term friends. I really get that. So I love this show. I love Middlehood. I love all the little clips that you've sent me. They're terrific. Tell me, or tell our audience, how they can learn more, find out more about you and everything that you're working on.
All right. Well, you can come to our website, which is middlehood.tv. It's got a little overview of the first season of the show, of how we made the show, which is also a really interesting story, but it's all in there. This is, a show that was made completely independently outside of the studio and television system. So there's a whole other story to that. And also we have a Facebook page, and come and like us on Facebook. It's Middlehood TV Show. Come like us on Instagram. It's Middlehood TV Show. We've got a Twitter, which I'm not really that active on Twitter, but we do have a show, Twitter, which is @MiddleShow. So, join our family. We have a really active and fun Facebook family. And we would love to have you on our Facebook page. So,
yeah. One final plug. I think you need to write me into one of your episodes, Michelle.
I've already done that for season 2. You're already in the show.
I'm fabulous, and I've been in a horror film. So if I could do that, I can do anything. I mean, if you want me,
I've already got a role for you in the show in the second.
Oh, it'll be a hit. I promise this will happen. So anyway, I'm thrilled. I was sort of just kidding, but I'll take it. I'll take it, Michelle. Anyway, it was wonderful to talk to you, and I can't wait to see you soon.
Thank you,
Michelle.
Me too.
Yeah, Michele Palermo sort of does everything, also teaches at Columbia University, just sort of does a little of everything. But in particular, this new series upcoming, Middlehood, it's about all of us, people. So check it out, join the tribe, and we'll see you all soon. And thanks for joining us for Deborah Kobylt Live, and also our Little Italy podcast and Little Italy of LA podcast. So wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's video or audio, just look us up, look up the name of our show. You'll find us, audio and video. So thanks everybody for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. Happy New Year to all, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.